Sharren Haskel, thank you so much for coming on the show. So great to have you here. Maybe an insensitive question given the circumstances, but how have you been doing?
Well, actually, the last week has been very tense. We know that Iran has threatened us with a response. And so Israelis are in a process of preparing themselves for an attack, a possible attack. So it's quite tense time, stressful, but as always, we'll get over it. We know that, the justice and the truth is with us. And we count on that.
Well, absolutely, and we're of course all with you too. It's so great to have you here. As you know, our ridiculous foreign minister Penny Wong made some comments this week about a two-state solution and recognizing Palestinian statehood. What was your reaction to those comments?
I was really shocked. I was really shocked because a foreign minister who deals in the Middle East that has that kind of declaration doesn't really understand the culture, the geography, the history, or what is actually happening and what is going to be the result of that. We are absolutely appalled from the suggestions. This will, first of all, will be an absolute prize to the terror organization, which means that after the most brutal attack and massacre attempt of genocide, where they were burning babies, raping little girls, beheading men and women without any kind of discrimination, the international community, after an act like that, is actually declaring a state, okay? And what does that mean for our region? It means that we will be bordering a terrorist state, an actual ISIS state that is going to be our neighbor. This is what it actually means. And I know that there were different declarations about the Palestinian Authority. I think she should speak to Mahmoud Abbas first, the president of the Palestinians. Because, first of all, this is not a democracy. There weren't elections for, I think, more than almost 20 years, like more than 15 years now. Okay, so it's not a democracy. And if she would look on polling, not by Israel, but by Palestinians or Americans or any other country who did polling, political polling in the Palestinian Authority, she would actually realize that if Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinians, would set elections tomorrow, in a month, or in 6 months, Hamas is the one who is going to take control of the Palestinian Authority, which what she's actually telling Israelis is that she wants to declare a state and give it to Hamas. Now, we know what Hamas wants. We know what Hamas is capable. Suggesting something like that means to put a knife on our throat constantly. And I don't expect that from one of our greatest allies to actually declare or tell us.
The comments were appalling, and all the things that you say, and the joke is, she said in her comments, the condition of this would be that Hamas wouldn't have anything to do with it, but as you say, Hamas would get voted in. So it's the most naive, politically ignorant statement. And she also said, a two-state solution is the only hope of breaking the endless cycle of violence. I think I know the answer to this question, Sharren, but is she right? Is that a correct thing to say?
This is completely ignoring the history of what had happened here in the last 20 years, okay? Gaza is this two-state solution experiment. Israel has completely evacuated it from any kind of military presence in 2005. We have evacuated from every single living Jew in that territories. I mean, they were given it with no conditions at all, which means they could build there a Singapore or a Hong Kong. And I can promise you that Israel would have supported and actually massively assisted in something like that. But unfortunately, the result is one of the worst nightmares of Israel actually coming true. This has turned into a radical Islamist state that is bordering us, where they actually vowed to genocide my people and to completely eliminate my nation. I mean, this is absolutely appalling. And the suggestions to for us to actually try that again. I mean, she's telling me to risk again the lives of my babies, of my children, the lives of people here, okay, for another attempt to be burned or anything. If she would have brought a long term proposition on how to first de radicalize the Gazan population, then we could sit around the table and start talking about it. But that's not what she's suggesting. We're not talking about how to de-radicalize the population. We're not talking about trying to find a leader who's publicly declaring that he's willing to live side by side with Israelis, with Jews. She's not trying to resolve the hardcore issues of the conflict, which, and this is a really lack of understanding of the Middle East, okay? Our conflict is not a territorial conflict. This is a cultural and a religious conflict. And until we resolve those two hardcore issues that sits in the heart of the conflict, the religious and the cultural one, there cannot be another attempt of a territorial solution, because Israel has experienced, I mean, too many people have lost their lives. We have more than 130 family members of ours, our sisters, our children, our parents who are being held in the dungeons of Hamas, being tortured, being, abused sexually, physically, emotionally, being starved. And she's telling us to try that again without trying to deal with the hardcore issues of radical Islam. No, thank you. I'm sorry.
Well, that's exactly the thing. I mean, it's so naive to call for a two-state solution, because, I mean, the salient point is one, obviously, Hamas actually isn't interested in a two-state solution. Neither are most Palestinians. Most of them do not actually support a two-state solution. And as you said, and this is the point I've been making for a long time, is that this is not just a turf war. This is about radical Islam and the irreconcilable difference, which is that religious and that cultural conflict. I mean, how does anyone actually get past that when groups like Hamas are on a religious crusade?
Well, you really need to put a serious blindfold on your eyes and really ignore a lot of the facts. I mean, she is very well aware, and the Australian intelligence and military forces very well know that who orchestrated, planned it, financed it, trained troops is Iran. And Iran is a mutual problem of all of us. This is the radical Islamist regime, the biggest sponsor of terror. They have all of their brigades or troops or battalions of Iran. They're set in Lebanon as Hezbollah. They set in Iraq. They set in Syria. They're set in Yemen. I mean, they're attacking commercial ships, okay? This is causing problem to Australia as well. This is Iran. This is not the Yemeni. This is not just the Houthis. Iran is the one giving the order. Iran is the one financing it. And Iran is the one arming them. So this is a mutual problem. It's not just going to disappear unless the international community has a very strong fence and a red line that it's set for Iran and saying, you are not going to cross that, okay? They are threatening our societies, Western civilization. They want to completely eliminate our identity and the values that we believe in, which at the center of it is freedom and liberties. And so if you understand that our values, our identities are being attacked by Iran, and they saying it out clear and loud, you just need to listen every single week to their speeches of their leadership, then I would expect her to understand that this is a threat to Australia as well, and that we have to join forces. We don't need to reward them, and we definitely do not need to bend to their will. On the contrary, if last month there was a mutual military training of Iran and Russia and China, that's a result of this bending of Western society, of Western countries, to the radical Islamist, actions.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it does, as you say, present a huge threat to Australia. And I think Penny Wong is being willfully ignorant of that. And look, the other sort of ignorant thing about these Western politicians like Penny Wong, who are calling for a ceasefire or calling for a two-state solution and are calling for peace, it's very clear what would, facilitate peace in the region, which is Hamas surrendering and releasing the hostages. So why isn't Penny Wong, who claims to want peace, calling for Hamas to surrender and release the hostages? Why no pressure on Hamas?
That's a great question. It's a great question that needs to be asked. I mean, if Hamas would have released our family members, we would have been in a ceasefire.
Yes.
Okay, we would have been a few steps forwards, but not a word about demanding Qatar to put pressure on Hamas to release our family members who are being held captive.
It really is the million-dollar question. I mean, it's confused me from the get-go. That would trigger peace in the region, at least for now, but no. It's all the responsibility is placed on Israel. Nothing seems to be placed on Hamas. They seem to be held to a lower standard, I think, than Israel, which is incredibly infuriating. Sharren Haskel, it has been a pleasure, as always, having you on. Thank you so much for giving us the latest. All the very best, and I really look forward to talking to you again soon.
Me too, and thank you so much, and thank you for covering the issues here in the Middle East.
My pleasure, and we will speak again very soon.